You are watching TGZ TV.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of Industry, where we delve into the lives of people within entertainment as they give us their journeys within the industry. From playing musical instruments at the age of 5 to becoming a sought-after, globally recognized music director and summer-winning music artist, Zadok takes us through his journey in the industry. Hello, Zadok. Welcome to Industry.
Thank you so much for having me. How's it going?
It is such an honor and a pleasure to have you here, and I am definitely looking forward to hearing what your journey has been within the industry, because looking at your CV, you've got quite an amazing CV, and I am very curious as to how you got started into music, because I know that obviously you started off really young and then you later on took it very seriously, and all the way down to you deciding to use the name Zadok and not your birth name as your stage name. I'm super curious about that. Tell me about your story. How did you get started?
So, okay, like you mentioned, I started playing recreationally and in church from a pretty early age, from when I was like 5, 6. And I did that for pretty much most of my childhood into my teenage years, and then I left and then went to school to like study like marketing or something. And then I had a thing where I would do videos online, and one of which went viral. I remixed.
wow.
There was a viral video in South Africa at the time of some girl talking about she's lost the pot or something like that. And then I remixed it, and it like hit like 100,000, 130,000 views or something like that. And then I think that was kind of like one of the indicators that I kind of needed to realize that, okay, I'm actually good at this from a professional standpoint, because I always knew I was talented, but I think, and every honest creative will be, we'll say this, that like there's a level of insecurity to which you're not sure that you're the I don't know if I'm allowed to say. Am I allowed to say? Yeah.
We'll blip it out.
There's a level where like you're not sure that you're dope, but there was certain validation that came from that to recognize that, okay, I actually have something different to offer in the industry, and people who are already working in the industry were recognizing that and like, yo, who's this new kid? And I had nothing at that point in time. I had nothing to do with the music industry. I was just a student, and then I think there was little thing that happened along my journey that kind of just reinforced that for me, that okay, I need to be doing this and I should be doing this because I can and I'm good at it. So here we are.
Okay.
That's how.
So what I want to know is, I want you to kind of take me back a little bit, though. Obviously, since from your childhood.
Yes.
Okay, from the time you were a kid.
Yes.
Was it something that ever crossed your mind to say, yeah, or you saw something on TV that kind of inspired you to kind of go to that direction? What was it like for you growing up that kind of led you to where you ended up getting a viral video?
So for me, yeah, I did have I grew up in a Christian home, and if you guys know about anything about Christianity, music is heavily involved into the culture of being a Christian. Like we sing, we do a lot, like it's there. But outside of that, when I was young, I didn't derive a lot of inspiration from external sources, because I was quite introverted back then. So I spent a lot of time in my bedroom just with a piano. My parents had a piano. Yeah, so I would just be there. I'd just be playing for just hours sitting next to just this electric piano. It was some oldish electric piano that we had at the house, and I would just sit there and just play.
So what how did you learn the piano? Like, was it just a normal thing within your family to learn?
Not even. So, I mean, I have like a distant cousin who did music at some point, but my dad was very creative. I can give him that. He had like some past in broadcast. He would like direct television at some point in time. So he did have a history of being creative. But in terms of it actually being developed, that was just purely me.
That's amazing. So you're self-taught.
Yeah, if you can use that word, yeah.
That's pretty cool, because obviously a lot of they'd say that a lot of really amazing creators, whether it be musicians, you know, especially those who learn instruments, are normally the ones who are self-taught, you know.
Yes,
So you kind of fall in that bracket where you're self-taught and you've managed to do amazing things with it. That's actually pretty cool.
yeah, absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
actually
and
pretty cool.
it's something I actually encourage a lot of people who ask me about, like, how do you get into playing, like how to
Hmm.
play it. And I say everybody needs to have their own experience with the instrument or with music,
Hmm.
you know. At the end of the day, I have my journey, and yeah, you might be able to learn from it, but ultimately how you interact with creativity and with music
Hmm.
is purely individual, and that's purely your journey, you know.
That is very true. And would you advise people, what advice would you give them in terms of like those who never really had access maybe at an earlier, you know, age? Because normally when you start at a younger age, you pick up quicker. But obviously
Yes.
there's some people who want to do it, but they don't have access, they don't have the opportunity, or they've got very strict parents who are against them taking it. And so maybe, you know, 10, 20, 30 years into their life, that's when they want to learn. What advice would you offer people like that?
Go for it. Go for it. There's people that I've met that have been playing for barely 3-4 years and are proficient at their instrument. There's people that have been playing for
Really?
yeah, and there's people that I've met that have been playing for as long as I have and aren't really that good, you know.
Right,
There
right.
are different levels to it, you know. It's the crazy thing about creativity is you never know until you give it a shot.
That's
Um
true.
you never really know. So you just have to go out there and just try, literally. You have to
Right.
just have the boldness to take that leap of faith
Just
and
give
say,
it your
hey,
try. Right.
yeah, because you
Oh,
won't know
wow.
unless you do it. So
Yeah.
that was literally my story of, okay, even when I entered into the industry, I was quite hesitant,
Right.
to be very honest. But I was just like, you know, I took that leap of faith, and years later, I'm grateful I did.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what was the atmosphere like for you? Obviously, you used to spend a lot of time in the bedroom with the piano, you know, you had your distant cousin who did music and that kind of assisted you. How did you manage in terms of obviously being a kid, you know, playing the piano, and what kind of feedback were you getting in terms of whilst you obviously you're trying to go to school at the same time, right? You're still under your
Yes,
parents'
yes,
home.
yes.
So you're going to school, you're
So
doing all of these things. So how was that journey for you in order to kind of like say, okay, I'm done with school now? Or did you just carry on within school, taking lessons within school?
so the crazy thing was, outside of church, really,
Hmm.
I wasn't heavily involved with music. So
Oh.
because church is so engaging and it's very time consuming. Anyone
Hmm.
who's been involved in church will let you know this,
Yes.
specifically in the Black community. It's quite time consuming. So I think I spent enough time in that space to kind of, what's the word? Like, I think it kind of counted for my practice, so to speak,
Hmm.
because outside of that space, I was doing sports. I did cricket, I did
Sports.
football, I did, yeah, I was an avid sports dude. Um, I did a lot of that. I did during high school and during like primary. I did like provincial level with football as well. It was a thing for me. I love sports also. That's just another part
Right.
of me. So I was very active growing up. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
I had a
So
normal childhood. Let's I
you had
wasn't
a
like,
very normal childhood.
yeah, no,
You had a very, that's really good though. So you didn't come out as a child star or anything like that. You know what I
no,
mean?
no, 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 no,
Um,
no, no. I just
so
yeah.
in that time then, since you were obviously heavily immersed in church and music, you know, through the church, and you were doing your
Yeah.
sports, was it at the front of your mind or at the back of your mind, say, you know what, I think late when I grow up, I want to become a musician, or when I grow up, or were you considering sports, or were you one of those who were like, I'm not sure what I'm gonna
So
do?
funny enough, because music was so involved in part of just my natural surroundings, it wasn't.
Hmm.
I don't want to say it wasn't a thing, you know, in my head. I always used to say growing up I want to be a graphic designer, because I once saw someone who had been like, I think they did like websites, and they did
Hmm.
graphics for like television shows, and I saw that and I was like, yo, I'd love to do that at some point. And that was my aspiration, outside of obviously being a football star.
You want to
Anyone
be a
who
football star?
listen, guys, you know. So it was those two things. It wasn't a I want to be an artist. It was just natural to me. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I didn't have to think about it as a career choice.
Right.
It was
So you
never. I
just
never had to
literally
think
made a
about it.
natural transition.
Say sorry, what?
You made a natural transition into it.
Yes, 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 absolutely. Yeah, it was just a natural transition, and it was like I said, because I was involved so much regularly at church. It was just a
Yeah.
part of my life. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
knew I had some. I knew what I was doing on Monday. I knew what I was doing on Friday. I knew what I was doing on Sunday because of that perspective. So
Hmm.
I didn't have to think about it outside of this is what I do regularly.
Right. And
Yeah,
so when you obviously ended up making the video that went viral,
yeah,
right?
yes,
How did that change your life? Because obviously you were pretty much living, you know, what you perceived to be a normal life, all right, prior, and then you had a video, 150,000 views, went viral. How did that affect your life, and how did that affect your music career?
So I think more than anything, it affected my thought process regarding the skill set that I already had. I knew I had a particular skill set in terms of music, but in terms of using it from an industrial standpoint, like monetizing my creativity, I hadn't thought about it from that perspective until as a reality until that moment. So once that moment occurred, I was like, okay, cool. I have a mind that is able to like see pockets and understand, okay, there's potential there's business pockets here where you can monetize something here. There's opportunity. I can see that. So as soon as I recognize that, okay, I have something that's different that can contribute to this industry, specifically the music industry, then I was like, okay, let me take advantage of that. Let me go right ahead. Go for it. And then I immediately, same time, I think within 6 months, I Googled how to like register a business, and then I figured it out, took some on like, there was some guy who was giving some courses on like startups and stuff like that online, got into how to like efficiently make money from it. And then I just moved from there.
Wow. And so obviously your CV is quite massive. Okay. You did, you contributed towards the Lil Nas performance with the BET Awards 2021. You have produced for AKA, and the list kind of goes on. So obviously, after you've got your viral video, you've learned a little bit more about the business side of it, monetizing your content, etc. How did that transition happen in terms of obviously getting the attention from what you would say industry heads, so that they managed to connect you to the right people? How did that happen, and who did you end up signing with, or who approached you?
So, funny story, I only actually got management like over the past year, but I'll get into that later. What had actually happened was I was very blessed to encounter and meet some of the like strongest production minds in the industry pretty early. Like within my first 6 to 12 months of working in Joburg and being in Joburg, I started working with JR, Java, Ricky Rick. That's literally like how I started like coming out the gates, and for me it was purely a thing of any industry, to be very honest, is built off of relationships. If you understand how to navigate those relationships, then you're probably going to have a pretty successful or long career. So I never missed any of the opportunities I got. I always got like pocket opportunities where I wasn't supposed to be there, but I was, and they needed someone to do the job, and I did it. And they were like, "We should have had you all along." And I was like, "Yes, you should have. Let's talk about this." And then moving from that point onwards, then it just became a thing. And obviously, we have a very small industry in Joburg. If anyone knows the music industry, they'll let you know that like pretty much everyone knows everybody. So as soon as I started doing like a few noticeable things, the word started getting out that there's this kid, and then one Jay would speak to somebody, this guy would speak to that guy, we need that guy, we need him for the services. And then from there it just took off. And then I think late 2017, early 2018, a few of us, with support from JR actually, we started the concept of the Cousins. And we were basically putting together bands and musicians for like artists. And then that's really what made things take off. Our first really big platform was the Feel Good Live sessions. The second really big thing that we really did was the Channel O 20 celebration. We music directed that show. And then from that point onwards, that was in 2018. It was a huge lineup. It was the first time I had to like handle that amount of work. The lineup had you had your Nasty C's, you had your Frank Casinos, you had your Trompies, you had your TKZs. We had to work with Double HP for that show as well. RIP. But yeah, so it started very quickly for me. But I can tell you that the most important thing for me was consistency. Like being the dude that shows up, being the dude that actually does the job and does it well. That's what really got me my kickstart in the industry, I'll be very honest.
Oh wow. So what do you think, because obviously when I say our people, I mean the Black community worldwide, there's always talk of, we're quite notorious about not always either following through or not having consistency, that sort of thing. And that kind of can be quite detrimental to us actually building our careers. And you know what I mean? Having good relationships, even when we want to do cross-culture, collaborations, etc. So you say you're the man who, you showed up, you did the work that no one else wanted to do, etc., that sort of thing. Where did that type of work ethic come from?
I was having a conversation with my mother,
Mm-hmm.
and the conclusion of which was, you have this amount of talent, but to make this work,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of work that you put in needs to match
right
the level of talent that I have, because I'm already very good at a lot of things.
Right.
But the thing was, now a lot of times people who have this level of talent are always lazy about it. They're lazy about putting the effort in because they think the talent will get them there. And unfortunately, this is not how the world works.
Right.
You can have the talent, you can have the ability, but if you don't put the work in, ultimately you won't get there. So that was my motivation. That's still my motivation to this day. Is like, you can fault me on a lot of things, but you won't fault me on the work ethic that I have and how much time I put into it. You won't fault me on that,
That is true. There is a saying, they say, I think it's is it 10% talent, 90% work?
Yeah, exactly. So now when you have this amount of talent, it means it needs a lot more work. I have to be putting in the hours. So that's where the thought process came from, where the motivation was to be consistent and to actually do the work that no one else is willing to do.
Right. And so as an artist right now, obviously you recently, I think, released your EP.
Yes.
Is it your first EP? In terms of a team around you, because obviously there's only so much you can do by yourself, right?
Yeah.
How have you managed to kind of like work? Obviously, initially you were doing everything by yourself.
Yes.
How have you managed to transition into bringing people on board who have your best interests at heart and who understand your vision for what you want for your career?
To be very honest, it hasn't been the easiest process personally, because again, I'm very hands-on. I'm very involved in everything I do because I'm so versatile personally. So it took me developing a bit more trust in other people's abilities and also their skill sets, because ultimately, if I've chosen to work with you, not only does that say something about me, it says something about you and how good I actually think you are,
Right.
So there's an exchange there. You see the value in me and I see the value in what you have done already. So I think you have to trust that. If I've decided to work with you, I have to make the decision to do that. Trust that and say, okay, cool. You're good enough to handle my talent and my vision, and you see the worth, and you think you can contribute to something that's worthwhile. So that's the transition that I had to make over the past year, to be very honest.
So before that, you were doing everything yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow. So wait, in total, how many years are you saying, like from the time you kind of kicked off your career, had the viral video, how many years would you say has that been?
It's probably the first 3-4 years of my career. I've just been writing solo. Look, in terms of, I did mention that I started the company called The Cousins. That was supplying musicians and bands to artists and things like that. But outside of the team that I set up for that, because that also has its own thing. Outside of that, for me as ZΑDOK, I didn't necessarily have my own team until
Got it.
recently. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So trust has been a big issue. Why has trust been a big issue for you?
In the music, specifically in South Africa, we have a lot of examples of potential being wasted.
Okay.
And I've seen it happen quite a lot of times, where very, I don't want to say stupid, but very avoidable mistakes have been made, by teams, and you can say by management teams and by the PR people in certain teams. It's just that could have been easily avoided as well. And then 2, I've seen great examples of longevity in the industry. The golden age of what some people call the golden age of hip hop has given us some very astute examples of how to maintain a career for a long time. It's not a mistake that the likes of your AKAs and your Questas and all these people have spent this amount of time being successful in this industry. It's not a mistake. It's a first for us, I think, personally. Well, not a first, but it's not often that we have artists remain consistent in South Africa. So for me, that was a thing where it's I want a team that's going to be able to build with me, and as soon as we get to a level that as soon as we start knocking out those goals, we need to consistently keep growing and maintain and push forward. So that was why it was a bit difficult for me to just like find the right team. It took time.
To
It
kind of
did
go
take
with
time.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you
There's still parts of it. There's still parts that I'm still plugging into the team. That the team is not completely finished.
Mhm.
And, I'm still building the team as the brand grows as well. So
right. So
yeah.
how did you find yourself on obviously being signed to VTH Season?
So funny enough, we just started being involved a bit more in the same circles as myself and Benza. I was working with Keenan at the time because I was music director for Keenan, aka
Okay.
I still am. But around those times is when him and I started hanging out a bit more, and then I was working on the music already. I was because I've always been that person. I've always worked on my own music. I've always been writing. I've always been like just making songs. I just
Mhm.
hadn't found the right way to put them out yet. So the relationship developed from there. I started sending him my songs. He was like, "Hey, yo, let's do something real." I was like, "You want to do something real? I want to do something real. Let's go." And then let's go from there. And then I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but
Yeah.
it was a recognition. Greatness recognizes greatness. So I was just like,
Right.
I know what you've done. You know what I can do. Let's go.
Mhm.
That's the long and short of it. Obviously, there's more details to every deal and every
Of
agreement,
course.
but ultimately, that was it. That was pretty much it was relationship. That's how I've succeeded in the industry. It was based off the relationships that I have.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
that's how that
So
happened.
my next question, obviously, because you've mentioned about consistency.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
obviously, when it comes to being consistent, it comes with pressure. Because
Yes.
like, okay, this is the time frame that I have, you know which seasons, you have to put music out, because everything has a season when
Yes.
things are likely to pop off more than other seasons. Okay, so you've got that pressure, which comes with almost the business side of it. Okay,
Yeah.
and then you've got the creativity. But sometimes you find that some people tend to, when they've got too much pressure on them, it can stifle their creativity sometimes. So how do you find that balance, being able to stay consistent so that you can kind of maintain the business side of it that will help with longevity, but also not stifle your creativity? Because obviously, if your creativity is not on point, no matter how consistent you are, people be like, what happened to ZΑDOK? Like, what is he producing? This doesn't, it's not it. So how do you find that balance in order to still produce great music, still put good content out there?
That is a strong question. Yo. Yeah, that's a heavy question. I think it comes from having an ability to compartmentalize. I wear different hats in the industry. I'm a music director to some. I'm a producer to some. I'm an artist to others. I've done different things in the industry, and to be able to execute well in those roles specifically, you have to zone into that, to what the moment needs. So you can't now get overwhelmed by one, the pressure, and two, the greatness of the moment. Now for me, if there's one thing I'm very strong about and that I really love is and appreciate is moments. It's what has kind of made my career so amazing. Is I've had so many beautiful moments. I've gotten to experience things that a lot of people might never get to.
Right.
And the actual thing that I struggle with is now being able to take a step from, okay, this is a great moment, this is a huge moment for me. Okay, now zone in on executing. So that's my actual battle. In terms of the pressure, I don't necessarily feel the pressure like that because, again, because of how great the moment is. I'm actually I'm very excited about the opportunity that I've gotten. Like, case in point, when I got that mail about the BETs, I felt less pressure and more excitement about the moment, because I was just like,
Right.
it's so huge, and I know who I'm working, because I know the team that's behind him, Nas that is, and I know who they are, and I know what they've done.
Right.
So when they reached out, and I'm like, hey, yo, this is who I'm talking to. I know exactly
Wow.
who you are, So I'm having a moment because ultimately I am a fan of music. I love music. That's the thing I love. That's why it was so natural for me. It wasn't a thing of I could see it as a job until that moment happened, because I just loved it. It was so organic for me. So even till this point in time, I'm still a fan of the people that I work with, and I'm still a fan of the music that I make and the moments that I get. Excuse me. And that's it for me. I just always appreciate the moment, appreciate what I'm doing at that moment in time, and then focus on the job at hand.
Yeah.
It's really a game of compartmentalization and being able to separate like certain parts of your mind at this point in time. Say, okay, this is what I need to do. This is what it needs right now. Yeah.
That makes sense. And I kind of like the way you said that, you know, you're still a fan of the
Yes.
people that you work with, because I think people need to be able to understand the difference. You know, you can still be a fan of the people you actually work with and be a fan of their
Yes.
work without being a fanatic.
Literally.
You know?
Literally.
Without being a fanatic, because I feel like that allows you the room to still be passionate about working with them,
Yes.
because you appreciate it better rather than thinking, well, we're working together now, so you know, you're just like me, kind of thing, you know, kind of attitude.
Yes.
So I kind of like that you said that, because I think that's important note for people to take, for those who are watching, you know.
I will say, sorry to cut you off, but that is
Yep.
like one of the hardest things about working in the industry, is that now you get to get close to people that you have put on this pedestal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, I need to now just put my fanboyism aside, or whatever the word is, my fandom of them aside, and just relate to them, because now ultimately we're both working in this industry. We're not colleagues, you know. Now the relationships that we develop are genuine. They're at a personal level, they're at a human level. It's no longer just at a, you're an object that I can't relate to as a fan. So that switch has been not the easiest thing to like navigate, I won't lie, but it's something that you just have to do. You just have to be able to say, okay, cool,
Yes,
we're professionals now, and I have to talk to you as a person, because ultimately you are a person, you know.
you are a person ultimately. That's literally,
Exactly.
when all is said and done, you are a human being just like me,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly.
And it's just knowing the boundaries of that respect to say, you know what, I actually am a fan of the music and I'm passionate about it, so I'm actually privileged to be able to actually be a part of it now, something that I never thought I would be a part of, right?
Yes.
And without getting, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you, you know, like okay, this one might be a stalker tomorrow, so let's
Exactly.
change the number. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So, you know, trying to avoid that. Coming up next.
He commented immediately, downloaded it, reposted it on Twitter. In 10 minutes, that video had like, I think like 30,000 views or something. Even coming into it, there was a lot of people that didn't think I belonged in the industry, you know?
Right.
There was a lot of people that felt like, one, you're an internet kid. Where do you come from? You didn't go through the same struggles we went through. I can't control the feelings. As much as I may feel bad for an amount of time, I can't control that.
Right.
You're going to feel how you want to feel about what I'm doing, and that's okay. That's
right.
on you. I'm not responsible for your feelings.
You're not responsible for for a person's feelings at the end of the day.
I can do what I can to make sure our relationship is good, but ultimately, if you decide that it's not worth the time, I understand. The point is, that is one production that means a lot to me. One, because I grew up watching it a lot as a child and a teenager, and it was a big deal to me that the Summers encapsulate SA music, and they represent us. That's our heritage.
I want to touch on, obviously you mentioned, you know, the Lil Nas and the team kind of contacting you. How did that even come about for them to even like have you as a shortlist or something? Because I'm sure they normally have things like shortlist of people, like, okay, who are we going to bring on board, right, for this particular performance, etc. How did your name? Do you know how your name came into the picture?
Again, the internet. I just did it.
The internet.
Literally the internet. So he was posting some
that.
unreleased. He's posted some unreleased music. Well, it's out now, but at the time it was unreleased. And I couldn't get the song out of my head. I was bumping the song every day. I was playing that video over and over and again. I even converted the video to an MP3 just so I could listen to it.
Wow.
And then I was like, okay, cool. No, I need to do something, because whenever I have a song that's stuck in my head or annoyed, then usually I'll just like do my own version. And that kind of helps me get over it, so to speak. And I can get back to doing other stuff, because I'm obsessive when it comes to like loving a song. Or
I'm a little bit like that.
So,
it's quite bad.
So now, so in this case, it's a video he had dropped, and I'd been bumping this, and I was like, I got to do something. I did a video. My friend FD, super producer, by the way, close partner of mine, is part of the cousin as well. Shout out FD. He did the drums on that video. I did the keys and guitar, and then we posted it. He happened to be online on Instagram at the same time.
Really?
Hey man, what are the odds? So he happened to be online. He saw the video. He commented immediately, downloaded it, reposted it on Twitter. In 10 minutes, that video had like, I think like 30,000 views or something. He eventually took it down, but not before somebody had sent it to me and said, yo, They reposted your video
Oh my
on Twitter.
gosh.
So obviously now, as soon as he does that, the rest of his team is like, "Hey, yo, what is this? What's
Who is
going
this?
on?"
Who is this? ZADOK? Oh, he's in South Africa.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like my people are not losing their minds because, like, hey, yo, he commented in real time, like within 10 minutes of me posting.
Right.
You know, so it's like a thing now. Now I'm reposting everywhere. It's wow. They reached out, and then that's where the relationship developed.
Right.
And then from that point onwards, it's just a thing of okay. For any really, really big moments that we have, we like to have you on board. I was like, hey, yo, you count me in, bro. I'm done. I've been doing this from a professional level, but they don't know that, obviously.
Right.
But
Right.
I've been doing this. I've been building shows from a production standpoint. So it's just not preparation meeting opportunity. And
Literally.
that's all it is.
Literally.
So, yeah. So I was when they called me for the BTs, I was so hyped.
What was it like? What was the preparation process like for you? And what was the time frame that you had in order to prepare
So the time
and then all the
frame
way to the
was
actual performance day?
so the time frame was it was actually very tight. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was around the week of the show, and I had to like work on more production ideas for the performance during that week. And they told me when the rehearsals were gonna start in LA. So I kind of had like an idea of when I needed to submit, because they sent me the files by Dropbox, and we just emailed and back and forth, because everyone was already doing that thanks to COVID anyway. So it didn't feel too weird already.
Right.
So we were just like, okay, internet boys, let's go. So that's how it happened. It was very tight. I didn't sleep that night, but I got it done. I've done it before. I've done many sleepless nights. I think there was a crazy show I did once for Java at the Sun Arena. There's like 10,000 people, and the night before I was wrapping up the final touches because we had some last minute change that we needed to add in. I didn't sleep the night before the show at all.
Somewhat of the norm in the industry.
But I'm used to it. It's just that's what the work requires, and that's how much we love what we do. Is that we want it to be the perfect product. When something's not good on stage, it personally hurts. I feel pain. That's how passionate I am about music. So it's just like it wasn't hard for me to just set time aside and actually get the job done.
Right. Oh wow. So I would just want to kind of like traverse back a little bit in the sense that obviously you've had a pretty smooth, journey, and also had the privilege of having a pretty decent normal childhood, right? But obviously, as it is with life, nothing is ever perfect.
Ever.
So what kind of hurdles, from the time, from your grassroots level to even some of the great opportunities and moments that you've actually been able to savor and really enjoy and, have been really surreal, should I say? What kind of difficulties or obstacles have you faced? And what are the most difficult ones that you thought you would never get out of in order to kind of continue on your journey?
I think the most obvious one that has probably a lot of Black creatives around the world can relate to is not completely having, maybe not the support that you'd like to have, type of thing from your immediate family, purely because of the fact of what kind of music you're involved with now and what it represents and that kind of thing. So for me, there's been a little bit of that I've had to like navigate. It hasn't been the easiest thing. I mean, to kind of deal with, and for me, like I said, my ability to compartmentalize and to just put things in one place has been my saving grace right now, to be very honest.
Right.
Otherwise, emotionally, there's a lot that has happened that I'm probably going to talk about more in my music. There's a lot that has happened that I could have just like reacted to and said, you know what, I'm good. I don't need to do this music thing. But yeah, quite a bit of it is very personal, so it's very weird for me to talk about. But
this is industry. It's about your journey, so that's the whole point, to inspire others. Yeah.
So it's very interesting. It's just I have had those moments where, even coming into it, there was a lot of people that didn't think I belonged in the industry.
Right.
There was a lot of people that felt like, one, you're an internet kid. Where do you come from? You didn't go through the same struggles we went through. You haven't. As people I found in Joburg that now look for me to hire them for work.
You see.
You understand? And it's a thing, and I've had to accept it and embrace that this is, unfortunately, this is the burden of greatness. This is how things happen. You
Right.
know, it's not easy being at the top, but it's not easy being at the bottom either.
It's not easy
Where
being
would
at the
you rather
bottom
be?
either. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly. So those are a few of the things that I've had to navigate. It's just like one, accepting that working in this kind of industry comes with certain things, and it means certain things to the people that you love, and there's certain sacrifices, certain relationships that you might never get to enjoy the way you would love to. And that's a mental and emotional sacrifice that you have to make to be in this industry. There's I have lost quite a few relationships over the years, and it hasn't been the easiest thing.
And how has that left you feeling, in the sense that, have you had to just say, you know what, maybe this is how it's meant to be, you know, I just kind of have to move on and learn to live with it? Or it's one of those where you feel like maybe at some point I want to, you know, make amends with some of the relationship, or you want to get back some of the relationship? How has that, you know, in terms of like obviously deciding on your career front of it, right, and saying, okay, is that worth kind of bringing back into my life? Like, I really still want that relationship with either my friend or, you know, whoever it is that you've lost along the way. You know, how have you been able to kind of navigate that? Even the people around you, actually, and yourself.
So for me personally, I've kind of mentally accepted that, okay, not just mentally, there's a huge sense of destiny that I feel about what I'm doing, right? And there's a huge feeling of that this is where I'm meant to be. This is my calling, you know.
Right.
And with that comes the understanding that you might not get everything you want.
Yes.
Right. With that comes that huge level of responsibility that, okay, you're going to, some people will fall by the wayside, some will stick with you, some will get it, some won't. And that's okay. I had to make peace with that very early.
Right.
I had to make peace with that fact that, okay, look, as much as this, I would like so and so, as much as I'd like Andy to stay in my life, chances are Andy won't get why I don't live, or I don't make the same choices that they do. You know, we're in the entertainment industry. We're like doctors. We're 24/7. We're on call. Anything can happen at any time. I can get a call today to say, "Yo, we're flying to LA. Let's go." Right. And for me, for what I want, for the dreams that I want to achieve, I'm going there.
Right.
I'm going to go. I'm sorry, guys. There's not a lot that's going to stop me that I will not sacrifice, unless it's like a huge tragedy in my family. But you know, so that a lot of people don't understand the difference of the gravity. So different things matter to us differently now.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't see it that way because they live different lives.
Right.
And they look at life differently. So it's part of why I started my new project series, which is called Perspective.
Okay.
Because I had to learn. I even had a relationship that ended purely because of perspective, you know, which is kind of like what birthed the whole thing. So I started Perspective Blue, Perspective Red, Perspective Black, which is the series that I'm working on musically right now.
Right.
And yeah, that's just been my journey, just to understand that and be compassionate to the fact that people have different perspectives on what we're doing, and it's okay. I can't control your feelings. As much as I might feel bad for an amount of time, I can't control that.
Right.
You're gonna feel how you want to feel about what I'm doing, and that's okay. That's on you. I'm not responsible for your feelings.
You're not responsible for that person's feelings at the end of the day.
I can do what I can to make sure our relationship is good, but ultimately, if you decide that it's not worth your time, I understand. I'm okay with it. It's not easy. I know I'm saying it very like it's not easy. It's something that you have to process, but ultimately, to get where you want to get.
Yeah. And what about your family? How have they adjusted to your growing career? How are they, you know, is anyone treating you differently? And even yourself, actually, do you feel you've changed as a person?
Okay, so intrinsically, and this is a personality thing, in terms of the way I process information and like deal with life, I haven't really changed, because I've always considered myself very observant and very alert to what's going on. And also I like to be very, what's the word, introspective. I was raised to be that way, to be very honest. It's always been a thing of, if I was in a situation that had negative consequences, the first question I always heard from home was, what did you do? You know? That was a level of accountability that I've been raised to have.
That's really good.
So I have changed in terms of what I am willing not to do or not to do, you know, in such situations, and that will happen over time. That is going to happen. That's something that I've prepared a few people in my circle to be like, look, as this grows, things are going to change more and more and more. However, I am still me, right? Intrinsically. Yes, we as people, we evolve, we learn things, we unlearn things over time. But ultimately, the way I am, the way I approach life, the way I look at information that's placed in front of me is always going to be the same way. So that's who I am.
That's who you are.
Yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense. So, speaking of the subject of change, I want to touch on, because I've been curious literally from the time the interview started. Your name. Because obviously you've got it in your EPK. It's written that, you know, you decided not to use your real name because it wasn't really representing of who. I was like, okay, you're someone who's very, you know. I'm like, I want to get into this. I want to get into this. Please explain where you got the name Zadok from and why you decided not to use your birth name. I mean, it's common, obviously, for people to use stage names, you know. Aka is my stage name. So, you know what I mean? It's my stage name. So I would like to know, though, your, you know, reason for choosing Zadok and why you chose not to use your birth name.
I'm gonna be a bit coy about this one, but
okay.
I always felt like, so the thing about names is you're given them for a reason. A lot of times, specifically culturally, like your name means something to the person who gave it to you, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it meant to you because you had no choice.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now in this journey of artistry and creativity, you're communicating something at every point in the journey, you know, which is why PR is so important to artists and creators, because that involves your messaging. And if you miss that, then you miss it, like pretty much everything, you know. So back to the point, I was like, okay, ultimately, I want to control my message and what I represent and what people understand as me, right, from a public perspective. So yes, my family has the perspective they have of me and who they know me as and why they call me the way they call me, and that's great and gravy, right? But what I'm presenting to the world is going to be controlled by me,
right?
So that was the thought process behind having a name change.
Okay.
Why the name itself? It jumped out at me. I was actually reading the Bible, funny enough. And then I stumbled across the name and I was like, that's me. If I do something creative, if I have to ever go into the industry, that is me. And that was just kind of like, it was the thing I knew. It just immediately, as soon as I saw that, I was like, yeah, I'm ZΑDOK. That is who I am. Obviously, the definition of the name has connotations of being a blessing and other things. There's a lot of things involved, but I very much relate to that as well because of what I feel like my music's going to do for people.
Right. And hopefully for others too, right? A blessing to you, but a blessing to others as well.
Absolutely.
Right?
I love my music. Let's not get it twisted. Hey, yo.
No, you have to. Because if we don't, we wouldn't. Okay? You literally have to love your music in order for us to love it. Right?
Listen, my friends get so annoyed at how much I play my own stuff because I don't get tired of. I like my songs.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So
that is actually good. That is a good attitude to have because, you know, there's been stories, you know, in particularly obviously in the US where some artists have come out years later go, oh, I really didn't like that song and things like that. And you're like, why did you do it? Like that's always my question. Like, if you didn't like it, why did you do it?
I actually think that's also there's a level of lack of accountability involved in that because as creatives, ultimately you are involved in the process, and if you didn't deliver on the song well, that'll always come back to you. There's always come as much as there's different parts of the song and how the production feels and how everything else might happen in the song. And yes, you might have a team and you might not have the biggest say. I can get those things, but ultimately, it falls back on your shoulder. You are the one singing. You're the one singing. You're the face. So, it's your brand. No one's gonna care about who the producer is or who the other co-songwriter was. It's your place. I've cut so many songs from my project to relate the song to, no matter what. I have some of my own music that I've cut from projects that I just genuinely felt like they didn't work, and that's okay. That's not going to represent my brand. I'm just going to put that aside. There's some songs that will never see the light of day, and I'm okay with it. You know, I'm very okay with it.
Have you just kept them in the back, or are you have deleted
Yeah, they're in
them
the vault.
good?
It's good night.
Good night.
They're not coming out at all. It's just
That's
'cause, like,
all.
yeah, just as a whole, like holistically as a work, it didn't make sense. But
Yeah.
I enjoy what I did on it, but I didn't enjoy the product. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. That actually
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Because the execution didn't fully
Yes.
it didn't come out the way you were hoping it would.
Yes, it didn't
Right.
match my vision.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. So obviously we are literally just in the second month of 2022, right?
Literally,
And
it's
your 2021 obviously was quite amazing.
Yes.
You've got your new EP out. What are you currently working on, and what should people expect from you for the rest of 2022 in terms of your journey?
All right. So right now I'm working on the last part of my project series of the Perspective series, which is Perspective Black.
Nice.
So because I'm putting out Perspective Red right now, and then when I finish with that, I'm just going to complete work on Black. Probably drop that later in the year or next year. That's the first thing. And second thing I'm working on, which is where I'm at right now. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm working on an album with AKA. We're wrapping that up right now.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's very exciting. I'm very honored and blessed to be a part of it. To be producing this project. Then yeah, there's always big productions that I'm involved with from a live perspective. I can't always talk about them because of like
NDAs.
Yes.
NDAs, embargoes.
Yeah, exactly. But
the list goes on.
But definitely in terms of live productions, I'm always doing something. I'm always involved because because of who I am. Because of who I am in the industry. What else am I working on? There's something I really wanted to mention that I'm really working on right now, but I totally forgot. But yeah,
it will come back.
The most important things are those two projects right now that I'm doing.
Okay. And in terms of like, obviously, you've done productions, you do production for AKA, you've done production for Lil Nas X, and now you build up relationships there. Are there any other even events actually? Because since you do, music production even for events, right? It's not just isolated to artists. It could be, being able to produce for an entire show, an entire event, right? Is there any artists or any specific events that you basically have, seen or that you like, that you think, oh, one day I would love to be able to get involved with this?
That's very interesting. It's very interesting that you phrase the question like that, because I don't actually apply for these things. It's very funny. I've been very blessed, and some might say lucky, but I've been very blessed to not necessarily apply for these things. They come to me, because I have a particular set of skills. Yeah, but these things just generally they come to me because I'm always ready and I've put myself out there like that. So I don't know that there's a there is one. There is one actually.
Go on.
Yeah, definitely the summers. Which is kind of ironic because I do have a summer award that I won for producing on Java's
Yes,
project.
I'm aware of that one.
Yeah. And I've produced a couple of award-winning projects actually. 2 for him, 1 for Trezor, but that's another story for another day. But the point is that is one production that means a lot to me. One, because I grew up watching it a lot as a child and a teenager, and it was a big deal to me then. And then the second reason is I feel like the summers encapsulate SA music, and they represent us. That's our heritage as SA South African musicians, and for it to not look the way it should right now, it's hurtful. I mean, it hurts to like not see it being at the level that I know it can be with the talent that we have as a country. I know I'm being slightly controversial here, but yeah, it's just like I love that what it stands for. Those are our Grammys as a country.
Yes, literally.
So, yeah, those are our Grammys, and we've had such huge moments on that show with so many of our legends. It's just like it needs to get back to that status. It needs to get back to that level of it's the summers.
Have you considered talking to them?
We'll see.
And you know what? If they give you that go ahead, because I'm the one who asked this question, I hope I'm going to be the first person to say, "We're in."
Listen, we need to make it happen. We'll have to make it happen. We'll figure it out. We'll figure
Right. That would
Yeah.
be, honestly, I'll be extremely excited for you, because that would be actually quite amazing to see. And obviously, like you said, to see it elevated to the level that you feel it deserves to be,
Yeah.
that would be quite
Yeah.
an amazing feat for you as a person, but also for the Summers, I think, because it's been
Yes.
around, they've been around for years, and the only way should be up,
Yes.
for them,
Exactly.
as far as I know, as far as I see it, to be honest. So
And it means a huge deal. Like as much as, like I said, it's not at the level that a lot of us think it should be at. Like
Mhm.
it still means a lot to us. Like
Mhm.
it still meant something for me to have my own sum.
Mhm.
It, that I can hold and feel personally.
Like,
There's
mine.
that thing to it. Yeah, it's mine.
Right.
So it's important. It's important for me, and we're gonna get it right. We're gonna get it right.
Right. Well, you will. Now, honestly, you've offered a really interesting and insightful interview, and it's really inspiring. And I'm actually inspired by your confidence in your creativity. Because there's a lot of people who are creatives out there, and there's a certain level of confidence they have in their creativity, but yours is like beyond from what I've seen. And I find that quite inspiring, because it's confident but not cocky.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, it's
For me,
confident
I
but
was
not cocky,
having a
because you
chat with
believe
one of
in
my
your
good
work.
friends. He's a phenomenal writer from the UK, and
Mhm.
we were talking about that specific thing last year, about how a lot of artists suffer with that, and then the inverse extreme of that is they overcompensate for their insecurities by pretending to be secure and pretending to be confident, and
Mhm.
whereas they aren't actually. So I think once you're able to internalize your greatness and understand that you are actually this good at what you do,
Mhm.
and that you're actually
Mhm.
talented, everything outside of you is either just a confirmation of that, or somebody just trying to fight what is already true. And
Right.
once you've been able to accept and internalize that, and internalize
Mhm.
your greatness, internalize who you are and what you are, man, the world is
You're
yours.
good to go. Right. Ah, amazing
Yeah.
words. And have you got obviously, as we coming to a close of your interview, have you got
Yeah.
some wise words for people out there who look at you and they look at you as a role model? People who look at your craft and they think, oh wow, how does he do it? What do I need to do in order to kind of like not necessarily get the same level of success, but at least be able to get my foot in the door in the industry?
Okay, so I will say this specifically to musicians: is
Mhm.
you are never bigger than the music. The one thing that has been very consistent in me being where I am is respecting the music itself.
Mhm.
None of us are bigger than the music. We are here because of the music, in the music
Mhm.
industry, that is
Mhm.
specific. And the second you decide that you're bigger than the music is when you start failing. I've seen it time and time again around me with a lot of talented people who are probably even more skilled than I am in certain degrees, but
Mhm. Mhm.
because they got ahead of themselves and forgot to respect the reason that we're here, which is the music,
Right.
they suffered. That's the first. That's specifically just to the musicians, and then to the creative industry at large. I think, to be very honest, it's just a matter of you've got to be proficient at your craft. You have
Mhm.
got to be good at what you do. Ultimately,
Mhm.
that's step one. And you need to be in order to be proficient, you need to be very honest to yourself
Mhm.
and to those around you about your skill set.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you need to be able to recognize where you are and have a realistic perspective of, am I actually as good as I think I am, or do I just say to hype myself out?
Right.
So that's the priority. That's step number one. Step two is be ready. Be ever ready. Like, someone once said that, and I kind of believe it to be true to a degree, is that, like, if you're good enough, specifically in the entertainment industry,
Mhm.
the right opportunities usually tend to find you. Sometimes you have to fight to get them, but they usually find you. What you don't want is to not be ready for them when they get there.
Right.
You understand?
Wise
Like
words right there.
my first show. I'll just give an example of this, and I'll be out.
Mhm.
My first show with AKA, I did without rehearsals, without nothing. I just knew the music, and I knew I had the ability to run a show.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time that they called me the day off that show because there was a bit of a situation and they needed someone to step in. I got the call. I was like, okay, let's do it. And I did it purely because of the fact that I could do it. And I knew what I was dealing with and I was ready to handle the work at that moment. You don't want to have the biggest opportunity of your life and not be able to handle it because you weren't ready.
That's true.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, those are some profound words, guys. Basically, you always have to be prepared because opportunities can only come to fruition if you're actually prepared for them.
Yes.
You know, and that honestly brings us to a close for this episode of Industry. Zadok, it's been amazing speaking with you. It's been very interesting listening to your journey, and I'm hoping our viewers out there will be inspired by your journey. And honestly, I look forward to seeing what you've got in store for us, you know, what you're working on currently. And for those, obviously, you can go ahead and follow him on Zadok ZA over on Instagram. You can see it on the screen right now. Otherwise, from myself and my special guest today, Zadok, it's take care, everybody. Until next week. Goodbye.
Peace and love, bro.
Next time on Industry.
A roll-on cologne bottle and a Coca-Cola 2-liter bottle. And I worked my magic and I made that into a musical horn. And the instrument is called the gege horn. At those particular bars, then celebrities would actually come and start tweeting to say there's this band that plays amazing music and they have this drummer that sings in a language that does not exist. At home, we didn't have any financial backup for me to go to even a music school. So I have no formal education in terms of music.
Wow.
Everything I do in music has been self-taught. How I would deal with those lows, I love to walk. So remember when I said I used to busk? So I would walk from Naledi. Naledi is very, very far. Walk to Mandela's house for me to busk. So I learned that thing and it actually became my therapy because in the walks I would then have conversations with myself